please, speaker, take over the stage.
Is it working? Okay. Good. Working. Hello, everyone. Well, great to see this room so full. We were talking before with our colleagues that, well, there is a lot of interest in healthcare when it comes to XR. And I think it is. So our the panel, is actually called Beyond the Pilot for one reason. Companies working in the domain of healthcare, they are rushing, of course, to validate their solutions with a clinical pilot, and that's absolutely legitimate. But only the beginning of the story. Some people are of the pilot because they are difficult to manage. Well, the road ahead is even more difficult, I would say. And before starting, I would like to thank, of course, Sonia, all of the organizers, for hosting this session, and also our speakers, Gabriel and Dr. Ferrer, especially Dr. Ferrer, because this panel was born from his idea, so to bring really to the stage this very important problem. All right, so here it is. We already saw who we are, but we will have more opportunities to discuss. I just want to briefly introduce the session because there will be some interactive part of this. So use your phones very soon. Make them available. I want just to start with some data. When it comes for the global, take it here 2023, how many are the clinical trials that are involving virtual reality globally? A lot, and I would say Europe is still leading. We have more than 629 pilots, clinical pilots here. And in the smaller image, I know it's smaller, but we can spot France, Italy, Spain as the more active in the field, and that's, well, interesting. We can see another interesting data, like positive one. The number of publications in PubMed where there is, of course, the consideration and the inclusion of the topic of VR. Look at the growth of the publications in the field. In the last 5 years, we had 60,000. A lot of publications, a lot of research, a lot of scientists involved in that. A lot of projects that wants to emerge in the market. And I want also to remember this one, which is a European-funded project, the VR Health Champions, which is intended exactly to help small and medium companies around Europe working in the field to accelerate the market readiness with money, with funds, with very concrete money. And it's actually a consortium that involves several organizations, such as, for example, XR for Europe. So it looks like very interesting, very promising. No, it's not exactly total blue ocean. And at the same time, probably this is something that you wanted to add in this case, right, Gabriel?
As you wish.
Absolutely, no, because there is another part from me, and then we can also start. What about what's happening on the technological side?
Yeah, I think this is something we need to talk about because a lot of people nowadays are saying that XR is dying. I see a lot of life here, so looks like it's not dying. And we need to realize that a lot of big brands, big companies are still pushing XR devices. But it's true that for healthcare there is some kind of issues because not everyone has proper business headsets. At least only Pico is the one that is pushing that. And sometimes using in healthcare this kind of consumer device, even if they are so nice, better, with nice features, is complicated.
Yeah, and this is a good point. Let me also add this. With our company, I represent another company also, Softcare Studios. We have been working also with pediatrics. there are no exactly headset for pediatrics there, no? So this is exactly a compromise. Also when it comes for the ergonomics. They are deeply male-oriented and not exactly so representative when it comes to gender. And this is why statistically, women, they experience more cyber sickness because their headsets are not adapted and not optimized for their vision, for their ergonomics. Once again, from the consumer point of view, still, but if we want to really pursue even the idea of the personalized medicine, this kind of technology is growing. They also should develop some iterated versions, some tailored version that we can provide specifically to different categories of patients. And some final considerations here. Pilots, someone can complete a pilot, someone can gather clinical data, someone can publish feasibility studies, but this is where most of the challenges becomes. And this is why we are here to discuss this. Because from our experience in the hospitals, we know, and this is actually a topic that also Dr. Ferrer shared many times also on LinkedIn, every single hospital is following different protocols sometimes. It's very difficult to find consensus across international centers. Everybody is developing his own recipe, and this challenges the discussions. We said before, someone is introducing, even the speakers before, they were saying that when you want to introduce a VR headset in the hospital, someone says, is another hospital using that? You know why this is also happening? Because in many cases, physicians don't have standardized criteria to evaluate on their own why those headsets make sense. If they see another one, okay, there is a little bit less reduction of the risk perception. But we need to make physicians autonomous, not dependent on the others at the same time. And these criteria are still not available. But the biggest problem are not money. Because you can get a sponsor from sometimes pharma, as it also happened to us. The biggest problem is the change management that should happen within the hospital. Because technology is, we cannot say that technology is not major. Technology is there, and we have so many researchers out there. But at the same time, nurses, physicians, psychologists, they can make informed decisions only when they are enabled to do this kind of decisions. Because introducing virtual reality in the hospital is about rewriting the way you are managing patients. It's not a pill, it's an experiential therapy. And experience therapy requires a complete different kind of approach to patients. So it requires change management, the clash between new system and the legacy. Of course, data collection is always there, and legitimately hospitals can be concerned. They don't know exactly how to fit virtual reality in their cybersecurity plans. Workforce scarcity, and this is happening everywhere. I can speak for Italy. But in many cases, when you have scarce workforce, that you don't have the resources to manage additional technologies to learn. The technical debt, not all are prepared to use advanced digital technologies. And there is something that is called an epidemic of POC. Everybody wants to do a POC, everybody. Proof of concept, and exactly as I just want to cite the words of the CEO of Sanofi, we need to move the idea from the POC to MVP, which is very different. POC is just, let's see if it works. Okay, it works, and now nobody has a plan after. An MVP is a small trial that is made to work in the real world, that is delivered to test its workability. So we are going to discuss more about this right now, but I'm leaving now the stage to Dr. Ferrer.
It's you now. You want this? Yeah. I suppose it. Well, just a heads up, it's not like one after the other, it's all together, so he's not over, he's coming back. Well, this is the part of Rosemary, she was not able to come, so But it's very important, the ethics and the equity on evaluating a project for using XR or any technology with patients or in clinics. So just for you know, there is a lot of registration of clinical trials. Again, that was her part. I'm just going to pass very fast. But for you to understand, it's important that the technology is mature, but the ethics are not going at the same pace. And this is a big barrier when you want to adopt in healthcare because, you know, clinicians, they are ruled by ethics rules, let's say like that. So this is all her work, and I'm sure she can talk to you later on LinkedIn, and she's very accessible, and we're sorry she's not here, especially because I'm very pro women participation. I'm very sad that in the first panel, the only woman was not here, and the second two, it's a little bit sad. But, well, this is what we are talking about. Gabriel will talk later, but I've been studying a lot. I'm a medical doctor, and I'm also an XR developer. I'm this kind of hybrid crazy person. And because I have direct access, I've been working 22 years in clinical practice, in primary care, in the same public care institution that has different levels of care. So I have direct access. I know all. I've been working with them for 22 years. And still, when we talk about technology, especially VR, they look at me like, okay, another game. I know that all my friends that are working in startups and are not medical, they have a lot of barrier and difficulty to get even to start explaining the idea, no? You talked about that before. So yeah, it's very frustrating because you know there is evidence. There are evidence published. Why they are not using it? Even the same crew, the same team that did the research, they finished the research, you're not there anymore doing the research and the support, not being used. Very frustrating. So that's why I started this crazy idea of doing a PhD on how can we evaluate before we even start the project, what is the way to evaluate, find out and diagnose what is the barriers, what are the barriers and the facilitators in this specific use case with this specific team. That's the main idea. So we mixing here some very complicated science, because for me, I'm a medical doctor, not a psychologist, and we don't know a lot about psychology. No, but I'm back to school in the psychology department, learning about behavioral science and how to evaluate and how to intervene and make them want to use the technology in a way. So this idea is a multi-criteria decision analysis that is going to make 10 criteria at the end to make it easier, because it has to be easy to. You want to do a demo, and then you want to evaluate and ask them which of these criteria are more important for you, and which of these criteria are the ones that you find have the less support in your workplace. So the institutions can prepare and act before they start the pilot, because then it might get adopted in the end. So that's what we're gonna do with you today as a trial. So we're going to explore this criteria in 3 parts. Gabriel, do you want to talk something before we do the...
I like the people.
Well, we'll be talking all together. We'll all be talking here, I hope. So get your phones and get prepared to participate, please. The diagnosis is already done. We call it pilotismos. My manager is always saying, stop doing pilots. Pilots, no more pilots. So what we're going to do is change for the Mentimeter, because then you can all participate. So part 1. From these 4 criteria, which ones are the most important in order? You have it in your mobile, and then you can put them in order. And then we discuss one by one. Is it working? No?
It was a reflection of your phone.
Sorry.
Switch on the light, switch off.
Yeah. The QR code is there again. Yeah? Yeah, people is there. Yeah, I see. Yeah, okay, now it's working, obviously. Okay, so we have 9, 11. People are voting. I can see it here. I don't know how many people we are. 70. 70 people connected. So, yeah. Hmm. 45. We're getting there. Well, meanwhile, I have to say I'm sorry for the small room. We did ask for a bigger room, but that's what we get. But next year, healthcare has a bigger room for a real, very important area and industry for XR. As you can see, there's a lot of people outside that cannot
See you on the main stage.
Maybe the main stage, yes. Then you can do it. I don't want to go to the main stage. Okay, maybe people are finishing. So I don't think it's going to change a lot, but yeah, patient, well, it's very good because the medicine now is person-centered, patient-centered mostly, so it's important that the patient acceptability and trust is the main one. I agree totally with that. So if that's important, what can we do to make it work, to make it better? Because it's also about the way you present, no? The way you present the technology to the patients. Do you want to start? Or?
Yeah, no, I can add. Because I see the training requirements as the final one, and it's actually probably one of the most important. No? When you enter in the hospital, we are investing so much in the training of the workforce because there is such a big technical depth. One of the first bias is that when we show the virtual reality headsets, they say game. It's just a thing for play. It's a childish thing, and sometimes this also with the elder patients. So the biggest investment at the beginning is to find the time, meet all of the nurses and the physicians, and to explain this is definitely not a game. First of all, let's start from where you need to switch on and switch off, because this is the level in many cases. And then you need to really explain the foundation of why virtual reality can be useful in healthcare. It takes 1-2 hours sometimes. It's a lot. And maybe only after you can start talking about your specific solution, which is detrimental sometimes for your solution, of course. So I think that the patients is very important, for sure. But in many cases, patients are very open to this, patients and caregivers. Even if patients are very open to this, if there is no training, nurses are not going to introduce that. Because they are scared, because they think complexity in that. And especially if you have not so many nurses, complexity means additional time. Even 10 minutes more is catastrophic. So we really see this as crucial from our experience. And our colleagues were saying before, it's 3, 4, 5 meetings that you need to have with the physicians and with the hospital to really start evaluating that. Yes, this is part of the training, because it's about sharing videos, it's about sharing in practice, and after, they start onboarding the potential solution.
Yeah, I agree that it is difficult to go inside hospitals and also switch the mindset about the game. And I think it's also related to the hardware companies, once again. Because, for example, we work a lot in healthcare training, not just in digital therapies. And a lot of doctors, as soon as they try at the trainings we are doing, they buy a MetaQuest headset. Yeah, because like, okay, 300 and I can train in my house, not going to very fancy dinners and lunch with pharmaceutical labs, okay, I'm up to. And also because a lot of them have kids And they were, oh, my kid want this for Christmas, but I didn't buy it, but now I want it for me. So I think that the thing about see it as a game is not only in our side of the field, is also in the brands. But then as soon as you enter the hospital and do a few tests with them, they really love it. I mean, they want it. They want the VR. Also the patients, because, for example, Jose has a very nice experience with patients with pain that we share, and say how they can move beyond their limits with a smile in their faces. So I think that training is something you need to do, but not as much as. So I really agree with the numbers here. But I'm just curious, how many are developers here and how many are physicians?
First developers.
Yeah, first developers.
Wow.
Okay.
How many physicians? Oh,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, that's the problem, you see. That's that's a very good picture of what we face. Of course, training is important, but if they're not there, how can we train them? So, yeah. Patient acceptability and trust is very important. I think one key thing that we can do, if it's possible, is to co-create with the project. So you have to study it before you start the whole, if it's possible, with the team of the hospital or clinic, if you can use a group of patients to co-create with you, because they'll feel happy, they will really put on your T-shirt and they're gonna sell your product. In this case, I'm not selling products, but for you. So I think we should ask the audience, what do they think about the results and what are the found, and if they have any idea of how to overpass the barriers. Does anyone want to intervene or to say anything or to ask? There.
We are using this technology in different branches in my company for military applications, for medical applications. But the main problem we have encountered in our applications, the training requirements, because the technicians level, the engineers love the applications, they play like game. But when we go level down, the technicians or the maintainers, we start to have problems because they have a resist to use it, because they don't want to live their own way. And some of them have afraid of losing their jobs. It is interesting because they think that when they use this technology, probably they will lose their job. So the fourth one is our most important problem in our applications.
You're talking about the clinicians. They're afraid of losing, they're being replaced by the technology?
They to use it because they are scared of it. And they
Yes.
are always thinking they will make a mistake and this will result with a catastrophic fail.
Yes, and that's one very important thing when you present the demo for the first time. You should really bring the headset and explain the use case and make sure they understand it's not replacing the clinicians, it's empowering and enhancing how they do their work. It's not something that they're not doing already. You have to have something that helps them achieve their therapeutic goal. So it's faster or it's better or more interesting or more motivating for the patients. So it's not going to, they still have to be there. They're not being replaced. That's something that you have to say in the first day when you meet with them.
The fun fact is that AI is replacing in many cases, but XR is not about replacement. It's really, even in case of cyber psychology, the therapists need always to be present. The VR is just a way to extend the context of care. It's the same in the hospital.
Yeah, and I think also part of the human behavior is not accepting the changes. And you have like a lot of things to do in your life and then go with your family and everything. So just learning another device, even if it's a computer, is always hard. So
You need to lead by example also. You need to find someone that's going to, I don't know if it's okay, to find someone that's really already using it If it can be someone, a clinician, a nurse or physiotherapist, it's easier. They can translate it a little bit. Like they can. It's not that it's the same language, but they don't hear you. I know that. I understand. We are awful. There's only 3 clinicians than me here, so I understand the barrier. So there's another question there.
It's not a question, it's a remark. This survey actually represents the whole problem that you've just addressed. Most of the people that answered this survey are not clinicians. It's interesting to me if all the other clinicians, I'm a doctor, I'm an otolaryngologist, and also I'm trying to develop and insert XR both to training and to the operating room. My first concern was in comfort. The other doctors, yes, that's our number one. But most developers are, or will be, patient. And they want to be able to accept something new. And this is exactly what you said a moment ago. We don't speak the same language.
You see, yeah. We see the same problem with different perspectives. But yeah,
Safety
that's
and
why
cost is
I really
number
think that every XR company working in healthcare should have a clinician in the core team, not as a collaborator. I think that makes it important because then they bring this perspective that could be a detail, but it's very important because then the clients that are other healthcare providers or clinicians, they would see it, okay, it makes sense. Just because of this little detail, it's already saying, okay, they're not going the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your
Exactly.
feeling, yeah, I understand it. But on the other side, it's very important that we also understand that the patient should be the center of everything. That's not struggling anywhere in healthcare, not about technology. Yeah, let's go to the next. Sorry, another question.
Sorry, no. I find the results of your poll quite because it's all very good points, and it's kind of amusing how training can in fact be the solution of the 3 others. And I was just wondering whether, because that's something we do, is we have these hypercare early weeks, and I always say the first time is always stressful. So the first time we'll be there, and I don't know if you guys have experience into kind of being over-present for the first weeks of deployment, and it really reassures the clinicians. As you say, doctors trust doctors, so if you have a doctor on your team, it helps a lot. And I don't know whether you sense the same requirement.
Well, the training is the thing. If you train them well, they learn how to use the actual hardware. It's like learning a new mobile phone on a new program. It's very important that they are very comfortable with using it, and also troubleshooting, because the support is not going to be there when you're not doing the research anymore, or they're going to be calling your mobile. Because there is always a problem. The problem is that the technology is very advanced and it's getting better and better, but still, sometimes there is a problem. You turn on the headset and it's not working. What do? You're just a nurse waiting to put your IV line with the patient, and you still have to solve that problem. Yeah. So 2 clicks is the key, they say, for any kind of technology to work for clinicians. So you have to turn it on and put it on. So the kiosk mode helps a lot, even though we don't use it. I have a lot of clinicians using it. They've been very much trained, and they learn a lot how to put on the safety zone and all that jazz. Oh, someone changed here. Oh, what happened? We're changing minds here in real time. Okay, usability, patient experience. That's very important. Who did change it? You have to talk now.
We have another question there.
Yeah. Yeah.
My name is Lucy. I'm a medical education expert working for medtech companies, and I would be, like you talked about, 2 kinds of people in this room, like the developers and then the clinicians. What about people in the middle? For example, my question is, I would be curious to know how many companies here use sometimes the help of medical education experts like me, for example, who have actually one foot in the engineering world and in the medical one to actually help bridge, the difficulties in languages and communication.
And for training.
And for training, of course.
Even though it's not a training app, but you could be there for train them to use the headset for wherever use.
And also people, for example, with my type of expertise, they also are used as medical liaisons. So, for example, you mentioned you go to a hospital and you need to convince them to use the system, but you don't use the same languages. So I was wondering how many people here use people like that, or do you use people internally? How do you approach a physician to make sure that you speak the same languages, basically? Yeah.
I think it really depends on the stage of maturity of the company, because in many cases, many early stage startup, they will really optimize to the maximum, the resources inside. I think the best case scenario is for a startup to have already a mixed team, like people from medical, people from technical, and they try to initially bridge this. But I totally agree that your role can be pivotal in this. It depends on the resource also of the startup, and it depends also, on the kind of maturity of connection that you can establish with the hospital, because the touch points can be very diverse. Some hospitals very ready to talk a lot, and some hospitals where touch points are very, very limited in time. So in this case, probably the startup can manage it for good and for bad. What do you think?
I think we can learn a lot from pharmaceutical labs, because at the end it's kind of the same market. I mean, it's just a companion to appeal, to put into the hospital. So you need at the end to do some kind of meetings with them, try to explain the benefits of your product, try to work with inside or partnership clinician on it. And these kind of shows also help. And also, if you go not to the XR shows, are mostly developers, if you go to the healthcare shows where you really made an impact, because usually, at least in Spain, there are just a few developers in this kind of shows. So you really have a solution for them, and your customers are there for try. So I think XR needs to be in the middle of everything. It's an input and an output for a content. So we need to work together. I mean, like in this panel right now, there is room for everyone, because we all have just a bit of the knowledge we need for the entire picture. So there is completely room for you also in this team.
How you were doing it, so thank you.
Thank you. So next part, about the organization and the institutions. Let's vote again. Is it still working? You can start thinking about what you're gonna say. I was going to say the three doctors are voting for workflow, but I think it's more than the three doctors. So workflow integration, interesting. That's very important for the clients that are going to be using the headset, of course. To make them use it in the daily life, it's very important. Okay, now you're changing again. Resources and cost, very important too. Yeah, I think when you first meet with the institution, you need to make a plan of how this, not only during the research or pilot period, but after that, are they able to maintain the use of that too in the daily normal clinical work? That's very important before you start a project, especially if you're going on public healthcare system, because we do a lot of pilots based on grants or donations, and then when that 2 or 3 years is over, what do? We don't have access to the app anymore. We don't. Well, it's a problem. So it has to be started before, like where you're gonna integrate the app. Like for example, now we're gonna start a new project for post-stroke rehabilitation, and the first talk of the administrator of the building, she said, okay, let's find a small with the headset and the screen and everything. I said, no, you need to find where this is supposed to integrate in the whole gymnasium where they are doing the rehabilitation. And then the spot we're gonna do the trial in the middle of the normal work as part of it. Otherwise it's pointless. It's gonna be another pilot that's gonna die.
Going to put it on the shelves.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, can I, well,
Resources and costs are winning now.
Totally agree with the workflow integration. The reason why in many cases this technology do not survive beyond the pilot is exactly this, because they are clashing with the established work. Any workflow is a multi-stakeholder process, including physicians, administration, other specialist technicians. It was developed for a long time, and it is like a domino effect. When you change something in there, you will change many things around. This is why hospitals try really to keep workflows stable as much as possible. Well, if you don't co-design new workflows with physicians and nurses respectful of their time, energies, and also money at the end of the day, the solution, whatever is the of the solution, will not enter in the daily routine of the nurses, in this case, in our case. Okay, whatever is the feedback of the patients, even if the patients love it, but the work is the backbone of the hospital. And I think it's important. It's the same, all of the pilots failing with AI, it's not the problem of AI, but it's the problem of the workflow integration. It's the same. But the institutional support is fundamental. I just want to remember, but many of you will be probably familiar with, the Dutch program in the Netherlands, the support by the government in the Netherlands that supports the systemic applications of virtual reality across the hospitals in the Netherlands, in many hospitals, where even you have a dedicated figure, the role of the nurse specialized in VR, that's pivotal. Because when speaking with some hospitals in Italy, in our ecosystem sometimes, it looks really sci-fi that you have a nurse specialized in using VR. Okay, in many cases they want just the solution that does not make them to reason too much. Like you said, switch on, switch off, and that's it. But this is not the kind of technology. This technology requires a little bit of reasoning, requires a little bit of planning, a little bit of evaluation, assessment of the patients, because the same content is not the same for everyone. In the future, we will have, and hopefully, a virtual reality with AI inside that is able to adapt to the specific patients autonomously. So that is great, amazing, but not so far. Now you have 20 experiences, thousands of different patients, and you want the oversight of the nurse that says, okay, this patient is this, okay, this is the content right for you. This is the level of curation that we need. So, yeah, the ecosystem support is fundamental. What do you think?
It's true. I think that the problem with VR is still in healthcare. I mean, for the patients and for the doctor, because at the end, as you say, you need to select the therapy or the content you want to deserve, and also put the headset over the patient. Maybe sometimes clean the headset after the session. Yeah, more than sometimes. So maybe the real problem here is just the workflow, because we didn't touch the key yet.
Yeah. When you think about workflow in healthcare, it means very specific protocol. They need to know each step. Who is the specific person that is responsible to make sure that headsets are charged. It has to be to that level. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to use it like that we are like that, sorry. we follow protocols because that's the way you make patients safe. So you need to know who is going to take care of the headset. It has to be charged. It has to be cleaned between patients. It has to be connected or not. That's another point. Most healthcare clinics and hospitals, even if they have Wi-Fi, the IT crowd is going to make a lot of trouble. I'm finally, after 5 years, getting some centers to have a specific Wi-Fi for the headset, which is like a dream. But otherwise, it's blocked. You don't have connection. So you have to work around that. You need to solve that problem. Whether you do whatever you're doing offline or you solve a problem with other kind of connection that has to be there. So workflow is about protocol also.
Also for the developers here, if you are familiar with how the hospitals are working or not, but hospitals are jungles,
Yeah.
are labyrinths, in the sense that you are never targeting one workflow, in the sense every workflow is intertwined with other workflows. So you're moving one, but you're impacting also others. And really, the only way to bring a solution within the hospital is to enter in the hospital, which is difficult. You cannot build a hospital dedicated solution just from public reports or just from internet, for sure not from ChatGPT. But you need to enter in the hospital, establish a relationship with many stakeholders in the hospital so that you can map the workflow first and then identify where is the area when I can integrate the solution without disrupting too many lines in there. Because otherwise, it's creating friction. Friction, there is already so much in the hospital. More friction is not welcomed, definitely.
No. And sometimes we have these heroes, no, that use VR. But one bad experience can change everything. It's very important to be aware of that. We had, in the chronic pain project that we worked together, we had this physiotherapist. It was the first one that co-created the whole thing with us. And there was one day we left him alone with 8 patients, with 8 headsets, and he had a very traumatic experience because it took a lot of time, of course. You had to put the headsets on each patient, clean it. It's a time-consuming protocol. So the support has to be sought before you start it. If you have an innovation team like we have now, you can have someone that's going to be there for every time they're going to use it with a group of patients, not to leave someone alone so they get traumatized and don't want to use it anymore. Okay, let's go to the next part. Oh, we didn't open for questions, sorry. Anyone want to add anything here? You go.
Thank you very much. So slightly related to resources and costs as well as workflow integration, I'm curious how you're able to, you mentioned there's like friction and there's a lot of processes, but at least in North America, there's also like a lot of lack of processes and streamlines. So, there's a lot of shortage and burnout, especially amongst nurses, but in healthcare in general. And when it comes, for example, to training, there are mandates. Like they do have to learn, they have some days that are dedicated to on the latest practices, but it is very kind of like haphazard. And even when like a new technology or pharmaceutical drug comes in, normally there's like 1 or 2 nurses who knows exactly what's going on, and then you just either hope that you get the good teacher eventually, or you're never asked to like do that new procedure, right? And so there's like a limit of time, energy, and quite frankly like will to be there. And so I was curious, like how do you incentivize them to be like, okay, I know you're like really burned out, I know you're exhausted, but like to learn about VR. So how do you get that kind of incentive?
You have to make sure they understand the value of the XR for their work, whether it makes it easier to achieve what they want to do with the patient, or it makes it better for the patients. Even though they very much burn out, the healthcare providers, but they still very human-centered. They want the best for the patient. I hope most of them do still. So yeah, I think that's important. If you make them understand it's not about fitting the technology into their work. It's about learning about what they do and the needs, where in that normal work it can make it better. Where does the technology help, but not on the way. Normally we go with the technology. Let's see, where does it work? You have to do the research on what do they do every day, and then diagnose and find out where can it be improved. And then in those points you can see, okay, XR is good for this one or that one.
Okay, and sorry, as a follow-up, regarding like the constraints of resources, let's say the nurses are on board at this point, or the healthcare physicians, but at the very least, especially in North America, the idea is that like money talks, and so unfortunately, they're often not the key decision makers. They're the champions, but honestly, it's the admins or the directors who actually write that check and beyond the grants. And so I'm curious, do you use different language or communications when you're talking to admins versus like the actual people who'd be using it, the end users?
Yes, totally.
One cares about the money,
Yeah.
maybe others about the time, maybe
Yeah,
other about the
the
patient.
metrics are completely different. They're all about numbers. So you have to make sure there's else but improvement of care, but cost benefit. There is a lot of many that already understand that healthcare cannot be all about return of investment. It has to be, sometimes you have to spend a little bit more to provide a better care for the patient, to make it safer, to make it more motivating. But if you can, if you're doing rehabilitation, you might be able easier. It's one of the cases that's easier to make, the patient is gonna achieve the goals to be released before, because they are more motivated to do the exercises. This is a metric they would love, for example. If you do things like that, yeah, it's a different language. Anything else? Okay.
There's an innovation factor that they sometimes like to brag about, right?
Because it attracts the attention of the media. They get prizes. This is always good for the management. Yeah, but then sometimes you get the prize and then they don't give you any support anymore, which happens sometimes, unfortunately. Let's go to the next one, otherwise we get out of time. Get your mobiles again, please. Sorry. Meanwhile, you can.
What do I have? You?
Thank you. Oliver Canape, Geneva University Hospitals. We met before, so we created the Virtual Medicine Center there. And just one thing that working on the hospital side, research that I want to sort of highlight is one of the things that we did, which was a huge administrative task, but was worth it, is that we really anchored within the hospital's organigram, which means like HR or administration or finances. We're in the drop-down menu as a center dedicated to virtual medicine. So I think like if anyone is in the situation, really it's worth the extra work to create an entity that really exists in the hospital. The other thing I wanted to mention too is that hospitals will have some networks that are quite established. So for us, there was a big pain network, and there's lots of nurses working there. So these are like key contacts because they're everywhere. They're not linked to a specific department. So they're like super useful. There's like the hypnosis group. So I think also if you're talking to hospitals or if you're working at a hospital, use those existing networks because it's really great. And like especially the nurses, like they talk. Anesthesiology is another good group to talk to. So
No, you touch a very important point. The medical congresses, for example. We need more VR companies coming to the medical congresses to show the products, because otherwise they never have the opportunity to try it for themselves. And the ones that are using, the clinicians here, please go to the medical congress. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to prioritize medical congresses than XR and events like this. To evangelize them, I don't know if it's the word, but you need to make them see it's not just a game, it's really doing something positive for the healthcare system or the patient or making it easier to achieve the goals. And if you go there and you talk about examples, specific examples, that's the way they understand. And they say, okay, that makes sense. Because the chronic pain project, for example, we reduced a lot of chronic pain medication. We got the first year 70% less opioid intake that those patients are taking, because most of them are taking this because they didn't have any other tool to manage pain, and now they're learning emotional management tools, they're learning to move, and they're learning that they don't have to be afraid of moving, that kinesiophobia that we're treating with VR. So yeah, promoting XR in medical congress, I think, is very important at this point if you want to really invest on that. We are working together with the Pain Society of Spain, and we are going to be there.
And we are getting to the main stage.
Yes,
year
we're
by
getting
year.
the main stage there.
It's easier.
Okay, so we get votes here. Clinical relevance. They all go together. It's very important. Evidence. Yeah, that we were talking about evidence now. You need to show what's really there. What are the real use cases that are really making an impact in patients or in the system. So relevance and evidence is all about that. Yeah, it's a very tight one. But they all go together, yeah. Legal and ethical, you know. Rosemary is not here to talk about that. But yes, if you want to do any protocol, you all know the amount of work we have to do to write a protocol to pass the ethical committee is crazy.
Sometimes you need to look also for the back door to start.
Yeah, but then you cannot publish. Or you can not in a good journal. So yeah, it's important to make it an effort there. It's very important. Do you want to go on? Clinical relevance, evidence.
No, for sure. But at the end of the day, clinical relevance is the best benchmark provided by other hospitals or provided by some hospitals for sure. Some data, once again, the problem is that the fragmentation of the protocols, no? That you can have many clinical data but from protocols that are very different, difficult to compare. So we need to find consensus. We need to meet in the congresses, once again, to align on the protocol.
Yeah. Well, the clinical and the evidence is not going to build up by itself. So when you work with a team, you need to know what's done already, what has been published, what are the exactly scales they have been using in the other studies. So you inform, I think it's part of the work of the companies to inform the clinicians about what has been done with this use case of XR use, so they know in their protocol what scale, because then it's not building up the body of evidence. I even had something here about the, you know, I hope you all know about this, rate XR. This has been published in 2024. It's a reporting guideline for early phase clinical use case of evaluation XR in clinical use case. So this is very good because it has a guideline. If you consort guidelines for medical trials, this is the same for XR medical trials. And JMIR is already using it as one of the top lines for any kind of publication with XR. So this is something that you have to send to your clients and clinicians because they need to follow that to make it really in the same way that the other studies are published. I don't know, you want to add anything? Anyone want to add anything in that? Not about the there.
I have a question about when we're talking about the implementation and the workflows. There are many levels where we can start to hitting the target. For example, starting in the nursing school, so the switch between the generations who kind of try to learn about XR on their job already and having learned it already during the education. Also, government approach for governmental hospitals and implementing the XR solution already in the protocols. From which level would you start, or from which approach would be the most effective?
Most effective, I think it would be the education in university, but I think I would start in both sides because then it's more productive. But of course, if you get the people in school to learn how to use it, then they're gonna want to use it. They know the potential of the two to use in healthcare later. The real.
Another question is, do you think about meeting at the congresses? So there are almost only healthcare or only developers congresses. Do you think a mix of them would be possible and interesting for?
Yeah, so let's do that in Barcelona. That's one of the goals for next year. We want to do an XR convention, joining the industry and the clinicians. So I'm trying to join all the hospitals and clinics that are doing a lot of pilots. Sometimes they're doing the same pilot as their neighbors and they don't even know. So that's a hard work to join them and to make them collaborate. We're almost out of time, sorry. I'm gonna go to the next one. That's the open one. If you want to write anything like, why did you rate the order of importance? If you want to add a little thing, just a word is enough. What is more important for you when you use XR for healthcare? patient first. Good.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, Valentin, when you were presenting in the beginning, you mentioned about pediatric. So can you elaborate a little more on the use cases or what's your experience has been?
I'm working over the past 10 years in pain management, in pediatric oncology, in anxiety relief, stress during the long-term hospitalization, and also in sedation reduction during vascular access procedures for pediatrics, and also when it comes for pain management also with adult patients and elder patients. So we were developing virtual reality that of course is able to increase the sense of presence for that specific category of children. Older than 8 years old, I would say. No, in that case was between 8 years old and 12 years old, and in more than 20 hospitals in Italy. Thank you.
Okay, a less open question. Of the 10 criteria, I'm going to go back just to remind: usability, patient acceptability, safety and comfort, training requirements. Think about what you're missing there: resources, workflow, integration, institutional technical support, evidence, clinical, legal. So if you think about anything else that we're missing, please write it down. And then I'm going to have to finish now. Otherwise, they're going to kick out. And you need to go for lunch. Yeah, I know it's lunchtime.
A round of applause
Thank you.
also to Dr. Ferrer for this event and to all of us. Thank you. Thank you, Sonia.